Hey guys, today I want to talk about labels and judgment that impact the way we think and feel about ourselves. I feel like people just decide at some point that they are something and they never let it go, even when all the evidence is pointing to the contrary. Think about when people criticize themselves in front of you and you literally could not make a case for the criticism they're suggesting. For example, I have a friend that insists he's lazy, but in my opinion, he's so proactive and energetic. Do you have any friends like that? They try so hard to convince you that they have certain shortcomings and you just don't see it. Obviously, labels are subjective because everything's relative and there's no ultimate truth. But what's the point of labels if they just put us down when they're true and encourage self-fulfilling prophecies when they're not true? And for those of you who aren't familiar with a self-fulfilling prophecy, the term just means when you say you're something, so you believe you're something, so you become that thing. So if I walk around every day saying I'm shy and I'm not actually shy around other people, but if I keep saying, oh, you're so shy, then moving forward, when I go into social situations, I might behave more shy than I would just naturally had I not labeled myself a shy person, and I'm the anti-shy. I talk to everybody I want to talk to, but yeah, not shy at all. So in this episode, I'm going to walk you through some of the labels that I have placed upon myself in the hope that it will inspire some introspection on your part. I intentionally said it this way that I attribute the labels because I'm the active party here. When we judge ourselves, we create a label that very well might not exist from the perspective of someone else. And then we treat the labels we come up with as though they're character traits or parts of our personality, and it makes us feel like it comes from the inside, as if you've always been this thing just because you've labeled yourself that. Or even someone else labeled it and you internalized it. What I want to talk about in this episode is my realization that these labels are transient, they don't actually exist, and we're completely capable of abandoning them whenever we so choose. Labels are especially problematic because they're so sticky. And by sticky, I mean they hold on to us because once we think of labels, once we say them out loud, once people we care about label us and say it out loud, we get comfortable holding on to them and don't tend to re-examine to see if they're still true. So the first label that I want to talk about that I've given myself over the years is that I am a poor time manager. I have professed for at least a decade that I am terrible at time management. I tell anyone who will listen that I try to do too much, that I don't organize my tasks in logical sequences because I get overwhelmed easily, and that I become extremely flustered when I'm rushed or when people rush me, or more often when I rush because I didn't allow enough time for what I need to do. So when I tell people about this, they are always surprised, but I never interpreted their consistent surprise to mean that maybe it's not the case at all. So after a decade of being together, I want to re-examine this label of mine as objectively as possible. While it's true that I try to do a lot in excess of the time I have available, it's also true that my efforts accomplish so much. While it's true that I get overwhelmed, that's often because I don't ask for help when I'm tackling several tasks at the same time and I could really use a hand. While it's true that I become visibly flustered when I'm rushing, that's something I could easily work around by allotting buffer time before and after tasks that could take longer than anticipated. And that's easy to plan for because you start to get used to it. If I say I have 40 minutes to do my hair, I know that's one of those things that's just not going to cooperate. Therefore, I should have an hour to do my hair, and that allows for a humid day or picking up my phone in between to tell people I'm on my way or about to be. And you have to think of the things that tend to come up in the same situations and not keep repeating them. And I think I'm getting a little bit better at that. So speaking of time management, I'm notorious for meticulously detailing my entire life in an agenda book that I take with me everywhere I go. Let me grab it and show you what I mean. Be right back. So here I am back with my agenda book, and it's very cute. Plugging Erin Condren here, but not sponsored. I've just used their agendas for years, and if you're a person that really enjoys agendas, they have these cute little pages on it. I don't know if you noticed my name was on the front. You can customize them if you're into graphic design. I just used one that was already available. I write recipes in here. I do everything in here. So you can write in your monthly goals. I don't know if this is hard to see, sorry. But these were the monthly goals I put in for January. And then from day to day, you can just put what you're doing. I put these little check boxes to keep myself accountable, and I refuse to check the box until I've done it. I feel like this episode is really taking a turn. But the point of this is I said I'm a bad time manager. And do you see this? How is that even true? I keep cool notes in here. Whatever needs to be, again, my monthly goals, some birthdays. I put some stickers in here. This month is pretty lame because it's when quarantine started. So as you can see, it just says COVID, quarantine, boring. It's very boring. So after this very elaborate example, I'm re-examining this label I gave myself. I don't even have to think hard about everything I do on a regular basis because I write it down. And interestingly, the habit started because I had trouble keeping everything balanced, and I started writing everything that I do like that in high school, and I've been doing it ever since, so at least 12, 13 years of writing everything down, and that's the way I don't forget to turn in things. I don't miss deadlines. I meet goals more easily. It's a really useful device for me. I designed this organization system for myself so I could do things like homework and sports and applications and going to events I said I will go to and things like that. They say it takes 10 years to master something, so how am I still a bad time manager? Clearly I'm juggling all of the responsibilities associated with my full-time job, my social life, my relationship, daily workouts, studying, reading, cooking and meal prep, which I spend a lot of time doing because I love doing it, kind of. I love creating things. I don't really like the grind, but I am gluten-free and vegan, so I do spend a lot of time making things that fit my dietary preferences, and I'm gonna move more toward talking about that stuff on my channel soon, if you guys are interested. But speaking of my channel, that takes a lot of time. Taking care of my home, taking care of myself, I'm managing all these things. So how could I even entertain the idea that I'm a terrible time manager? But I swear the last time I said it was maybe 3 days ago or 2 days ago. And I'm sorry I'm losing the point on my soapbox, but the point is we hold on to labels that don't even make sense. I know people that started a fitness journey and they'll still tell you that they're out of shape, or they'll say words like fat, I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat. And it's like, when was that true? If it was ever true, even if it's true, why would you put yourself down? Because you mean it with a negative connotation the way you're saying it. So I can entertain the idea that I am a bad time manager if I ignore the obvious ways that I manage time well and focus only on my weaker points, like the ones I mentioned earlier. And these labels are also crutches, because on the days when we're struggling or we lack motivation, we can just lean on our labels and bring them up and blame them. It's like you jump the gun telling someone about your shortcoming before they can. So it's a total crutch. Like when I show up late to an event, which I sometimes kind of often do, and I'm working on it. But the first thing I'll say is, I suck at time management. When I turn out the lights at 2 a.m. and I promised myself an early night and enough sleep, I just say, I suck at time management, and it wipes it away. But based on this brief analysis and everything I know to be true and everything we just talked about, I released this label because I don't want to make excuses for the bad days, and overall, I'm really doing my best. So the next label I want to talk about is that I have been saying forever that I am not a morning person, that I'm a night owl. And last time I checked, I'm not an owl or any type of bird. Owls are kind of like birds, but also like dinosaurs. Definitely not leaving that in the video. I think I decided I was a night owl when I used to sit up at night on AOL Instant Messenger with my friends at all hours and just be tired all the time. But that just seems like an addiction to social engagement. So people say either they're a morning person or they're a night owl. But what even is a morning person? A morning person is a person that functions more easily in the morning because they have a habit of going to sleep early and waking up early. So they tend to be alert and have positive energy in the morning, which is better for people that go to work every day, for sure. But the thing is, we all have the same basic circadian rhythms. Our brains secrete melatonin at night when it's dark, and our metabolisms rev up during the day. So someone who's good at mornings just has a habit of going to sleep at a time that's more lined up with the cycles of light and dark, which we're all programmed to do. Since I started school, aka all of my life that I can remember, at least since 6th grade, I have struggled to wake up early. I noticed a really long time ago that I felt grumpy and grouchy in the morning, probably as a hormonal, tired teenager in the middle of a growth spurt. And I decided that I just don't do mornings. In high school, it was the funniest because I would cry actual tears at times when my alarm went off. You can check with my parents. I would like get out of bed and walk up and down the hallway lightly sulking, just loud enough so I would be heard. Yeah, I was always really, really tired. And when eventually I would drag my sad behind to school, I would sleep with my hands sprawled out over my desk until the end of my first period class. And this didn't stop in high school. In college, I dreaded 8 a.m. classes, and for certain major classes, you had to take them. So I would feel myself stressed out about having an 8 a.m. the next day, almost the whole day before. I would worry that I was going to oversleep, which was a very well-founded worry because one time when I was training as a college fitness instructor, I had to substitute for a 5:45 a.m. class. Well, I didn't have a car on campus at the time, and I woke up less than 10 minutes before the class was going to start to see that it was snowing outside. I pulled on random stuff and sprinted to the gym, put on the microphone, and realized that I still had retainers in my mouth. My pink glittery retainers. And it's gotten better, it has, but as a working adult, I still cringe when I get an invitation to a meeting that's going to begin before 9 a.m. So back to how we use these labels as a crutch. When I wake up in the morning late and I'm late to something, I tell people I'm not a morning person. And when I speak a tired, grumbly voice like that, I tell people, I'm sorry, I'm not a morning person. Or when I forget to smile at people in the morning, I blame it on that. So what I should tell myself instead is, I'm not any kind of person. The truth is, I went to bed too late last night, and I'm a person who requires adequate sleep to function. And this has nothing to do with me being an owl or any kind of animal or a useless piece of crap that just can't do anything in the morning no matter what. It's a bad habit, that's all, and habits are so simple to change. So here I'm sitting thinking about it, and it's interesting how I love mornings after nights where I went to sleep early. I'm actually never more productive than during the hours of 6 to 9 a.m. if left in my own space, undisturbed with no distractions. I actually love the way the day feels so long and spacious when you wake up early. I love the way my joints crack during a morning workout, and I guess that sounds gross, but it feels good to get your blood flowing and to get your body awake and start your day with energy. I also love waking up with enough time to get ready and have breakfast without rushing before I need to be somewhere. So if I love all of these benefits and I actually get so much out of mornings, why wouldn't I just go to sleep earlier and be a morning person? And it's as simple and silly as at some point in my life, I decided that I'm not, but I'm re-examining it now and seeing that this label isn't necessarily true and it doesn't suit my goals anymore. So from now on, I'm going to be a morning person because I prefer that. So the last one I have for you guys today, I don't do it that much, but I hear it all the time. I think it's a little problematic for a different reason. I think it does enable a lot of excuses and in some cases, self-fulfilling prophecies. So I want to talk about how a lot of people will self-diagnose with actual psychological conditions and say things like, I'm so ADD, I'm so OCD, or I have PTSD. And this one is very popular with a lot, if not most of the adults I know. Of course, so many people truly struggle with these conditions, and these are not the people I'm talking to right now. I'm referring to people who never really put the time and effort into investigating their mental health. Just people who are aware of what the conditions are and what some of their symptoms are, and use the understanding of those symptoms as a scapegoat when they don't put effort in certain situations when the effort would be difficult. For example, when you're telling a story and you can tell someone zones out in the middle and starts playing with their phone or doing something else, and when they notice you stop talking, they say, oh, I'm so ADD. And if that was true, then everyone I know would have it, but I don't think that's true. I think that people who don't actually check sometimes just use it to excuse their behavior. I know people that have been very rude or dismissive or ghosted, like just disappeared off the face of the earth without an explanation. The people that they're dating because they say that they have PTSD from their previous relationship. And I totally sympathize, if not empathize with that. But if the person doesn't actually know, he or she should find out instead of using the label to explain away an uncomfortable situation and not treat somebody right. Because even if you have PTSD, you should still not ghost someone or treat them really wrong. It should be more like, you saw a mental health professional, they confirmed that you have a lot of the prevalent symptoms, or you read about it, you learned, you're pretty convinced that you're struggling through it. Now this is the process where you seek help and you work through it, but using the label is not a reason to just mistreat people and never work on it. And I'm treading so lightly on this one because there are people who are deeply, deeply impacted by this, and I'm not talking to these people. I feel like I can't overstate that. If you're really struggling with it, totally different. But if you think it's an easy out from a situation that you don't feel like handling, that's not really being your best self. It just doesn't make sense to walk around saying you have a disorder without testing for it. If you think you have symptoms, do some research, and again, talk to a medical professional. Whether or not you have it, you should start learning coping strategies and methods to manage your symptoms. For example, I struggle with maintaining my attention span over long periods of time, especially when I have to focus on something I don't find intrinsically interesting. So managing my symptoms looks like minimizing distractions whenever possible, taking intentional breaks when I feel my attention span waning, usually doing something to move my body, and always completing the most important tasks first. So these strategies are meant to manage the symptoms. I have good days and bad days. I prefer to make an effort than to just tell people I have ADHD every time I stop listening to them, or I'm completely incapable of multitasking and something happens that takes my attention away. I don't want to use it as a crutch. I want to work with it as much as possible because we don't have control over the brains we've been given. All we can do is work with ourselves and avoid slapping on diagnoses unless you have sought the help of a medical professional who gives you that diagnosis. And even then, be proactive with yourself, work on yourself. No one is perfect. Everyone has something. So if you know you struggle, for example, with clinical depression, you might very well benefit from an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety medication, in which case you should totally decide if that's something you want to take. But in addition to that, you should look at strategies for working with yourself instead of giving the diagnosis all of the power over you. I think you let it inform your reality so that you can work with it instead of just resigning to it and kind of throwing your hands in the air and saying there's nothing you can do about it. But with depression, that's probably extra hard because you lose motivation. So just know I'm treading as lightly on this topic as I can. I have so much respect for people that deal with these things every day and still manage to keep their life together, because I know it takes way more of an effort, and I totally respect that. Needless to say, I've had my own issues too. So I empathize more than maybe I'm saying. So thanks for sticking with me if you're still here. And my assignment for you is to look inside of yourself to identify if you're labeling yourself in ways that you could do without, or justify behaviors that you'd rather not deal with at all. Then decide if you can and when you can. For the labels that are impermanent, like the first two I talked about, decide not to wear them anymore. I don't have to be a bad time manager if I don't want to be. Again, forget the category C, the last thing I talked about, because those aren't a choice. Of course, you can improve your circumstances, but you can't eradicate them the same way you can eradicate not being a morning person. Don't compare them, please. So if you find yourself constantly reaching for a label, just work towards softening the language. So for my first example, I would turn I'm a bad time manager into I'm working on my time management skills, because this way of framing is actually empowering me to do better instead of shutting down my potential. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. And if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. It helps me so much and shows me what you're interested in. And please let me know any feedback in the comments below. As always, there's so much more talk to come soon. I post a new video every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think that's all of my spiel. Bye for now.